Добрый день, дорогие дамы и господа.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Participants in our online discussion, panelists. I'm very glad to welcome all of you. Today we'll have 45 minutes of a very interesting discussion dedicated to the following topic: Is progress towards gender equality measurable? I'm glad to introduce to you our speakers of our today's discussion, and I will act as a moderator. The topic looks very interesting, and it includes conflict and number of questions as well. I hope that the discussion will be interesting for those who joined our session. Probably it will prompt some new ideas. Let us get started. A lot of research has been done in the world as to whether really gender equality may help you to achieve better economic indicators. There are even some calculations which say that you can increase global GDP by several $1 trillion once you improve women's employment. We have to understand what objective we are aiming at, and if there are any KPI systems which would help business and the state address the problem of gender equality. This is the SDG number 5, gender equality, proposed by the United Nations. According to MasterCard's survey, about 39% of business owners in Russia are women. And we are number 6 in the world following that indicator. This is quite high. We are in top 10. But still, there are some nuances. Not always we see the female business owners. They're not visible. And in terms of the board of directors and CEOs, we are not at the place where we aspire to. Following certain surveys, we see that still there is a difference in pay between men and women. Still, men are 30% better paid than women. These questions prompt us to try to understand how the society can address that issue altogether. No one can do that but us, and we are quite significant stakeholders in the Russian society. I'm glad to introduce to you our speakers today, who along with me will try to find the ins and outs of that question. Let me start with Galina Izotova, Deputy Chairman, Accounts Chamber of the Russian Federation. Raisa, Chairman of the Board of Directors, Velcom Company. Marina, Zhigalova, investor, entrepreneur, and managing investor of independent media holding. I would like to start with asking Galina Izotova to tell us about the main mission of the Chamber of Accounts of the Russian Federation. And would you also share some of your views on our today's topic? Well, the mission of the Accounts Chamber is very important. This is support of the sustainable development of the Russian Federation. Our policy is connected to SDGs. You spoke about that, about SDG number 5. Almost all the goals of sustainable development are connected to the question which is really very important, gender equality, inclusivity. And SDG number 5 is the key one, is the backbone, and is almost fully dedicated to how we may achieve gender equality and equality in general. Gender equality problem is noticeable in all the strategic documents executed by many countries of the world. What difficulties and challenges we see in that respect? First of all, what indicators you use and how you assess these indicators, these are very often arbitrary questions which would require separate decisions and solutions. Starting from 2019, the Chamber of Accounts of the Russian Federation is the chair of INTESAI. This is a public organization which brings together such agencies as audit chambers and chambers of accounts from more than 200 countries, and adopting the Moscow Declaration, which is a basic one for all the 3 years of INTESAI recent policy. This declaration also pursues the objective of assessing the efficiency of the public policy in achieving inclusivity and gender equality. That agenda and that policy for the whole INTESAI organization is a basic one. Throughout last 2 years, and in planning for the next 3 years to come, we see how big agenda every country has. In 2021, more than 34% of events held by INTESAI were dedicated to gender equality and inclusiveness. And now, in our activity, certainly, we also plan to become part and parcel of that process. A bit later in the framework of the discussion, I will elaborate on our plans. But we see that many countries planning for what they may do for the sake of inclusiveness and gender equality see some difficulties. Difficulties related to bring about standards. There are now common standards. There are now common indicators. And there are now methodological guidelines, at least time-tested ones. As the chair, and this year we are passing the baton over to Brazil, will act as vice chair of INTESAI for the upcoming 3 years. But still, we're going to promote that topic and spearhead it. And this year, actually, this stance, this position would be announced within the yearly plan. Russia promotes that topic in the international agenda. A lot of expert meetings were held. Back to the work of the Russian experts, I may say that really analyzing the increase in the pay for women or equal opportunities for compensation for the women. According to the experts, not just the account chamber, we could address a lot of demographic issues. For instance, by 2025, as experts say, for these reasons alone, we could have about 3 million new working personnel. Well, that's great. Demographically, the bulk of the population in the country is women, and minority ceases to become a minority. Therefore, probably we're speaking about the economic sustainability of the society and the labor market development and extra working hands would be very handy for Russia for promoting, for developing its economy. Marina, would you share some of your comments on the topic at hand? Well, gender balance and gender equality is extremely important for today, and the situation is changing for the better. But if we look at the data and we see that the World Bank put Russia on place 122 because of the gender equality or inequality. So There are some disadvantages in terms of the pay, in terms of the pension plan, in terms of the working conditions. I'm keen to look at the Russian survey because McKinsey's survey, which says that GDP would rise if women are more engaged, and another survey analyzed 360 American and British companies, and they found out that if more than 30% of women are top managers, then the company have better chances to achieve an economic success. And companies are less successful if top management has less than 10% of women. The conclusion that we can come up with is to do more women empowerment in big companies and mid-sized enterprises. There are three main areas in which we can work. First of all, we have to bet on the public opinion. We have to somehow acknowledge the role of women as leaders. According to the public opinion polls, unfortunately, women in Russia are not associated with success. 83% of Russians believe that these are men who are successful leaders. In business, this figure is reduced to 1. The role of media and the role of women who take an active part in the Russian economy is about being role models. And the companies have to develop programs aiming at women's empowerment from the bottom level to the top level. This is about the culture which promotes women. Basic support programs have to be developed. In the last 2 years, a lot has changed for the better. Working from home is good. It is complemented with the flexible hours, working hours, therefore women may work not in office only. Research shows that up to 37% of women take a decision on their own not to develop the business and not to continue their career because they are not confident of themselves and they're not sure that they could combine work and family. Women may act as role models. The women have to see how they may get a better balance of work and family. And later on I will tell you about the tools and instruments that we can use in order to promote the role of women and how to promote them to the top management positions. Marina, you're right. There are somehow family issues and domestic choirs, and many women give up their career not because they are not ambitious, but because they don't have any support, they do not enjoy any support. And they give up their career, although most of the graduates of leading academia are women. In terms of qualifications, Russian women are one of the most educated. Speak about the culture and society. I'd like to pass the floor to Raisa, head of the business that she built on her own. What do you think about the topic at hand? Thank you so much, Sonia. What happened to us? Starting from the pandemic, online companies' image improved dramatically. The company rests on the married men and women. We have 50-50 ratio. Single mothers are 150 per 600 women in total, but men find a different situation. We have about 588 men in the company, and 80 of them actually are either not married or divorced, and they have to pay alimonies. What happened? Industrial companies couldn't work from home apart from the service function, and therefore people coming from home would get care, would feel stability. They would see that the company is working, the plant is working, the demand went up dramatically.
Because many people stayed at home, and you know that cafes and restaurants closed down, and this machine, which dynamically works, enjoying high demand, made people very sure of themselves, gave them hope. But looking at household chores, they increased for women because if somebody's husband or children were absent during the daytime before the lockdown, so they need to be serviced, and not all men volunteered to share those chores, and that led to serious family conflicts. In spring last year, we drafted a plan of events which demonstrated for our employees protection. So we make testing for COVID every week. We have a medical room which works round the clock 7 days a week. We started caring for people who were hospitalized or fell ill. I personally monitor every person who has fallen ill. I get information until the person gets better in WhatsApp. I get this information via a chat in WhatsApp. If a person got into a hospital, then I provide money from the budget for the person to be hospitalized in a good hospital. And we also began to communicate with each other, and this warm feeling that exists in our office creates the impression that there is no pandemic at all. So speaking of the state level, I would say that production companies should be supported by the state, because after all, this principle, since the times of Lev Mikhailovich Savyolov, professor of the Archaeological University, a genealogy professor, we believe that the family and the extended family and the state are eternal, and this formula remains relevant, and so we have to support both families and enterprises which encourage response to our neighbor. Thank you very much. Yes, the role of empathy is very important. Everybody said that if you had a well-protected area, if you had a company which has undertook part of responsibility for the health of its personnel, especially if it is a company who cannot afford to close down. Thank you very much. Thank you for feeding us. And what you have said about the family, about caring, shows that a woman who owns a business or is the head of an enterprise provides an example of such caring. Now let us do questions and answers. Galina Sergeyevna, I would like to ask you, which practical steps should be made? We have discussed the problems, but we would like to end our discussion on a practical note. So what practical measures could be taken in this field? Yes, I perhaps will focus on our activities, which we are planning in in the nearest future within the framework of dialogue and interaction with other auditing firms of various countries of the world. I would repeat that that in all the docile countries there is gender equality agenda, and when towards the end of the year we voiced our intention to lead this agenda within the framework of our global association, and we amazed other countries, especially European countries. It was really an explosion of emotion. A fireworks of emotion, but every country has its own specific features. We have our own specific features. We develop, we work in this direction, but we walk our own way, our path. And I'm not going to specify which values the Russian Federation promotes, but at the head of this organization, we see the practical steps, a cycle of seminars on inclusiveness and gender equality, this year on such subjects as inclusivity and employment, gender equality and education, long-term care, and gender-oriented budgeting, because we see our main aim, the main aim of independent auditing organizations is to control budgetary process and expenditure of state finance. We will be planning to work in this field, analyzing specific measures, and starting with a cycle of seminars on all these subjects, getting the feedback. We will be developing the necessary methodology and the set of indicators that would be extremely important. Besides, we want to make a poll of people of various generations. How many time men and women spend on various non-paid job work. We have also a plan to continue working on in greater detail in the field of experience exchange, and as the initiatives of the Russian Federation at the platform of such a big organization, we have created and are developing the digital university of Indosai, and together with you, colleagues, we would like to discuss the preparation of online courses for all auditors in the field of gender equality and inclusiveness. But practice and experience is very important, and I have listened to my colleague, and I would like to tell you about a number of ways in which we work in our organization. These are wonderful professionals. So what do we do to support the women with children, etc.? But this is a somewhat different subject, and of course it is said that no men are taking part in this discussion, because gender equality is not only about women. We are talking about inclusiveness, so we would like to address our esteemed forum to invite men to this panel. Well, the very fact that this panel exists and that we are talking about measurability, this is already the next step after including the subject into the agenda. So it exists at the level of the state and of society. So we are quite mature, and we can work further. And COVID even is an incentive. And now I would like to ask Marina, as an investor. We have spoken now about ESG. So how gender agenda fits into this concept, and what can companies do about this to promote women who are career-oriented, who want to be leaders? As we have discussed today, there's a lot of data showing that women-headed companies are much more effective, investors get more profits, and their investments are more successful. I am very much interested in inclusiveness. We have talked a lot with our colleagues, like-minded people, and it is very important to get together to achieve some specific goal. It is really profitable for an economy to have women participating in it. It is important for me to be on the same wave with men. And so we should develop together business in this country. One of the projects which I work on is creating an association of business leaders. It is not going to be a women's association. Women's associations are numerous and they are often divisive. And I don't want to be divisive. I want to unite people around the goal of promoting women to leading positions. One of the problems is methodology. There are examples of various countries, and every country has its own way, and we are working on creating methodology for Russia. And this methodology has not yet been developed. So we will work together with you to have such a methodology for this country and to have it used in our country. And now the question is, what sort of companies should use this methodology? Big, medium-sized or small? There are lots of questions which still require answers. But if we get together like-minded people who share our principles, our values, then I believe that a lot can be done to promote women to leading positions. Role models is very important. Because many women are not ambitious because they do not have role models. And digital platforms allow to communicate with many women, not only in Moscow, but also in the provinces, so that they would feel that they can do this. And of course, if a woman has some sense of security, she will be developing much better. So I'm all for common work, joint work. So we are all for growth, development, and getting together around the same goals. You are quite right. In England, the 30% club was established. 30% of women in Russia, in councils of directors, there are less than 8% of women. And so this club was supported by both men and women. The very establishment of the club was due to the fact was meant to see, to show, to the senior executives to meet the potential female members of Council of Directors. So we won't be able to resolve the issues of gender equality without engaging with men who are the majority of decision makers who own companies. There's also a study of our colleagues, partners and experts regarding figures in the power. And the higher the position, the fewer women there are in it. For example, in ministries and agencies, on average, about 30% of if these are department heads, heads of departments. It's not so few, but higher, if we go higher, and among the deputy ministers and heads of agencies, there are only 15% of women, but not 7. 15%. And the level of deputy minister is highly responsible and highly professional. And women here work a lot. They need to deploy a lot of effort to be successful. And of course, it's a good percent.
Although 30% would be even better. Well, and to the countries which follow the way of quotas being introduced, says that they have to give up quotas. As far as there is no need for that, it only takes to start progressing towards 30%. ESG and sustainability of businesses and economy, I think, helps us to pass the buck to Raisa why we need sustainability of business and economy. Still, we want next generations to inherit the country and environment and the economy in its due shape. What practical steps can be made for the potential business owners can be proposed? Well, the main lesson from the 2-year-long pandemic is, well, the erosion of the role of a man, which happened naturally. As Galina said, the higher you go up the management ladder, the less women you may find. Amid the pandemic, people realized that without women's view in public administration, the picture of the world is distorted. And in essence, we predict that there will be more and more women in management, along with their empathy, along with their care. The 21st century is marked by empathy, which becomes one of the main features of Homo sapiens. It's not artificial intelligence, not the people's mind or intelligence which matters. These things are important, but unless we have heart and empathy in our relations, at all the levels of the hierarchy, the mankind will not cope with its main objective to bring up next generation, to bring up kids, create families. I remain an optimist, looking to the future, looking at the youth. I do believe that in Russia, our country, nice families would be set up, nice children would be delivered, and our country would be ahead of the rest of the world. Well, we have all the necessary factors for that. It's a well-known fact that Russian women are our common boon, and therefore, actually, we have all the chances to be in the top ranking. My question goes to Galina. How do you see the future of the technologies and the future professions, whether the women are ready for these new professions or these new opportunities? You already scratched the surface of education. Well, education, that's a basic topic for that. I think that, speaking how gender equality and inclusiveness affect the rise in GDP in Russia or, for instance, globally. Certainly, these factors would have a say. I already mentioned the Russian surveys and 3 million extra working hands, not jobs, but new employees in the labor market. That's a very serious contribution to the Russian GDP. And the dependence is as follows. The higher the pay rate is, and whether the state supports women, helping her to promote her career, it correlates with the growth of the economy, for sure. Some believe that there are no barriers on women's way, and if a woman wants, she may even break through a wall. I will support what Marina said. But we need support, each of us. Would not be sitting in that room, for instance, should we didn't have some home front, so to say, someone to help us, a husband, a family, kids, that we could achieve what we aspire to. So there is a direct dependence between these factors and economic growth. Marina, may I ask a question to you? What methodology to measure a gender gap you may propose? Do you have any vision? Thank you so much for this question, and it proceeds from what we spoke about. Internationally, we don't have a single methodology. Everything is very individual. It depends on the culture of the country, depends on the history of the country, business practice of the country, and economic development of the country. In that sense, we find ourselves in a very interesting moment. What methodology is going to be developed for Russia? We spoke about the Club of 30. That's a very interesting case. And other countries, gender equality and reporting is applicable for companies with the number of full-time employees more than 250. That's a unique moment in the history which would affect the economic development of the country in the upcoming decade. What methodology we're going to adopt? What is important for Russia? In terms of economy, the companies bring together following ESG agenda, and they are developing the methodology. The moment is opportune and ripe. I think that we have to consolidate around the problems at hand, and we have to bring about a smart methodology which will help the country to develop its economy in the upcoming decade. Thank you so much, Marina. Raisa, will you be interested in a similar methodology as a business owner or top manager? Colleagues are in a better position to develop methodologies. We will just follow that, we'll execute that. But the more women we have in top management and in public administration, the better it is for everyone, for the country, for the economy, for the families, for the people. That would be kind of powerful backbone, helping us to remain optimists for the future. If a person remains alone and he or she falls ill, especially amid the pandemic, who will take care of him? Who will bring him medicine? Who is going to call a doctor? Men who are very fond of themselves, who are being egocentric, who have very high self-esteem, I think, will remain in the past. They will have to be more humble. We, the people who work in the manufacturing industry, hope that there will be more women in the public administration, and the Russian Federation will show to the world our economic success, which would depend directly on the women's contribution. Thank you so much, Raisa.
За последние 2 года.
And certainly the value of life has become of paramount importance over the last 2 years. And we all know that even the young people may die because of the COVID or COVID consequences. We have to welcome women's contribution to the agenda because we can bring a lot of use to the society, not just in economic terms, but we can bring more empathy. That's why it's very important to continue that work. Thank you so much for a very interesting discussion, for your ideas, and I'm confident that certain steps would follow. There is certain work we have to do, but we remain optimists. So we believe in achieving real progress and that the society progressed a lot in order to become top 5 or to enter top 3, and probably in a year's time will be something that we can discuss in positive terms. Thank you so much, Galina, Marina, Raisa. Thank you. It was a pleasure for me to be a moderator. Thank you to all the listeners.